Hey everyone, VCalla here, and welcome to Let's Discuss Politics. Today, I'm glad to be joined by the MP for Mississauga Malton, Iqwinder Gaheer. Thanks, Iqwinder, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, it's so great to have you here. And before we start, I just wanted to make sure to mention that to everybody to stay updated with me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at VC Productions 25. Check out vincenzocalla.com, my website, and make sure to like, subscribe, and get notifications here on YouTube. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's get this interview started. So our first segment is called Iquinder's Story, where we'll talk about who Iquinder is and his political history. So I'm going to combine both questions into one today so Iquinder can tell his story fully. So the first and second questions together is, can you tell me a bit about yourself, your story, and how you got your start in politics? And then how did that lead you decide to run for MP in 2021?
Great. So I'll give you a little bit of background. My name is Iqwinder Gaheer, obviously member of Parliament for Mississauga Malton from the Liberal Party. So I was actually born in a village in Punjab in India, and I was born a few months after my father had left because of the political climate there. And I actually met him for the first time when I came to Canada at Pearson Airport when I turned 6, which is actually the riding that I represent. And it's a very typical immigrant upbringing. My father was a construction worker, a plumber, and I've spent my summers with him on the job. And I look back at that time very fondly. I don't know if I thought about it fondly when I was doing it. The focus of a typical immigrant family is education, because usually the parents didn't have a chance to pursue it. My father's been to grade 12, and so they really wanted us to pursue higher education. So I really focused on that, and I was a good student. I went to undergrad at the Schulich School of Business at York University, and then I was fortunate enough to go to Harvard Law School in the US and to practice there for a little while. So all this to say, I feel like the story that I've had in particular, and even my father's story of being coming here with no money, starting a business after being a plumber, these kind of stories I feel like are not possible in too many nations around the world. And so there's a deep passion for this country, a deep passion for Canada, and the ability of this country to really uplift individuals, families, and entire generations even. And I really wanted to serve, and I think that's what brings me into politics. I wanted to do a good job. I want to make sure that Canada continues being that platform for so many.
Our next segment now is called Serving as an Elected Official, where we'll talk a bit about Iquinder's experiences and achievements as an elected official. So first off, I wanted to ask you, what has been your favorite part about serving Mississauga Malton over the past few years as their member of parliament?
So I've only served for actually a year and a half. I think my favorite part is definitely the fact that Pearson Airport is in Mississauga Malton. It means that there's a lot of immigrants that actually come to Canada and choose to settle in Mississauga itself and actually in Malton. And so representing those new faces, those new Canadians is really a privilege because my family was in that spot so long ago. So being their voice and being their advocate in Ottawa is truly a pleasure.
Well, first of all, thanks for reminding me that the election was only a year and a half ago. It's crazy to think about, like I started these interviews during that election. It feels like it's been so much longer and it's crazy to think about that. But yeah, running serving people in your community, especially those that have stories similar to yours or your families must be super interesting as well to be able to bring their voices to Ottawa. I'm sure it's really interesting. And now the second question is, what has been your favorite achievement over the past year and a half as the MP for Mississauga Malton?
So it's only been a year and a half, and I think the beginning part of an MP's journey is really just setting up the constituency office, the Ottawa office, building reputation, meeting everyone, learning the ropes of how everything really works. And I think then you can dive into substantive issues. One of my, the things that I'm very proud of is the fact that we are able to pull so much funding for Mississauga Malton, whether it's for businesses that are in the riding or it's for Pearson Airport, and really get those investments because there's so many bright people in Mississauga Malton and they're extremely innovative, and being able to support that with government funding is really great.
And before we go on to the next segment, I just wanted to ask you as well. So you haven't been an MP for long, but in the time you have, you've been able to go to Ottawa and back and forth and all that. And I wanted to ask you, what are some things that you hope to achieve personally as the MP for Mississauga Malton over the next little while, over the next until the next election, and just in general, what are some goals you have?
Yeah, it's been a year and a half, so let's see how long this government goes until, if it actually goes to 2025. It's a minority government, obviously. I think my goal is really to build a reputation that this is a person that's empathetic and actually cares and works hard. Whether that shows up in the constituency work, in the immigration matters that we deal with often in the constituency, whether it's a reputation that I build with stakeholders, and them knowing that I'm truly I have my ear to the ground. I'm listening to their concerns and relaying those concerns to Ottawa and building that reputation here in Ottawa as well as someone who's an effective legislator, that really understands the issues, that contributes substantively, and that really wants to make a difference. How that shows up in specifics, I think, is yet to be determined.
We're going to go into the last segment now, which is called The World of Politics Around Us, where we'll talk a bit about this world of politics that surrounds us. So first off, I wanted to ask you, who is or who was another politician or politicians that inspire you as an MP?
So I think two immediately come to mind. One is Barack Obama, who I think inspires millions. He went to the same law school, or I went to the same law school as him, I would rather say. So he's someone that's very inspiring, someone that really started out early in politics and had very low chances of actually ending up where he did end up. And that's what makes his story ever more inspiring. Uh, and I think the other politicians that really inspires me is my predecessor, Navdeep Bains, who was the Minister of Industry, Innovation, and Economic Development, and was a long-term MP for Mississauga Malton. And just the representation that he was able to achieve for the community, and the work that he was able to do in the innovation space, it's unprecedented.
And finally, now this one is usually the one that always takes a little longer. So if you want to bring up a few issues, that's all right. And so it's what do you think is an issue or a few issues that you think need to be focused on more, both by yourself, your government, and just in general by decision makers everywhere? What are some issues you would like to see focused on?
I mean, these aren't really policy issues, but they are troubling. And I think what we really need to focus on is misinformation, disinformation, and the fact that we're taking sometimes folks take democracy for granted. Um, I don't know if there's a specific policy initiative that we can introduce, or whether we just need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. But when we spread misinformation or disinformation, I think that's very damaging to democracy. And that brings me to my second point, which is we shouldn't take our democracy for granted, right? That we've only existed for a little over 150 years, and empires have existed for much longer and they've vanished. So we shouldn't take this for granted. We should fight hard for our democracy every single day and try to make it better. And we really have to hold ourselves to more accountable and hold others accountable, actually.
Well, definitely, and our democracy is the reason why me and you are sitting here right now talking about politics and you being an elected MP and these conversations that we're having. It's just so important that we uphold our democracy and not take it for granted because it's such a privilege that we have a great democracy in a great country like Canada.
I agree. I always say it's a privilege to be born here. It's a privilege to arrive here and to live your life here.
Definitely, definitely. And it's such a great way to end our interview today. So that's all for today. Thanks, Iqwinder, for joining me. It was so great having you. So if you liked this interview, make sure to go check out the other interview with Iqwinder on YouTube for top 10. If you're watching this at the date of the premiere, it's going to be coming out on Friday. Let's Discuss Politics is a VCalla production. So until the next video, I'm Vincenzo Calla, signing out.